Hello everyone, I'm Broughy1322 and welcome to the 6th round of the Multi-Class Endurance Championship Season 4 held on platform-specific Grapeseed circuits. As we see the start for each race, you can see that we're in the Sports Classics class for this round, with GT1 drivers in the Turismo Classic, GT2 drivers in the Z-Type, and GT3 drivers in the Stinger. For all the information you need about this championship, check the link in the first line of the description. So round 6 of the championship was the round that happened before quite a long mid-season break. So during the championship there was a 5-week break between rounds 6 and 7. There was normally 2 weeks between each of the rounds and regularly, but it was kind of a long mid-season break. So everybody wants to get a good result going into that mid-season break to be in the best possible shape that they could be for the championship, ready for sort of the final 4 races and the big shootout to see who will ultimately be crowned champion on each platform and each GT. So this round kind of had quite a few very interesting moments right up until the end of the race, not only just on PS4 but on the other platforms as well, and I very much highly recommend sticking around until the very end of the video to see the finale of the PC GT1 race, because it was probably one of the most incredible things that I've ever seen in GTA racing and in the MCEC in general, but we'll talk about that when we get there. First up, obviously, as always, we're seeing the start of the PS4 race from each perspective, and then we'll go into how the races were won in each GT, and then we'll move on to talking about my race in particular. So just to point out, if this is the first time that you've seen one of these MCEC videos, there's a many playlists. There's the Season 4 playlist, which contains all the videos for this season. We're obviously on round 6 now, we've got 4 more to go, but this is Season 4 of the championship, so we've got Seasons 1, 2, 3 as well. Lots of content. The MCEC has been going on for a few years now, and we are finally catching up with Season 4. So we saw sort of a decent start from Murphos and Cirrus in the GT1 class on PS4, and this is ultimately where the race was decided. Murphos is chasing down Cirrus on these first few laps and gets a nice run out of this corner, and ultimately goes up the inside here, gets the lead. There is somebody else just behind as well, so it's kind of a 3-way battle for the lead during all of this. But they keep it all nice and clean as they go through the first of the GT3 drivers there as well in the lapping process. And Murphos drives away from that point and continues his dominance in the GT1 class for PS4. When it comes to the GT2 race, it was basically a battle for the lead between myself and 80 Horse, with Mike BWFC being around that sort of lead battle as well. So we will see more of that. I'm not going to spoil it right now. I'm going to sort of talk about that as we talk through, my experiences during this race. So we'll leave that for the moment and move on to the GT3 race, which was very interesting. There was a lot of different lead changes, and it culminated into this moment here right at the end of the race. As you can see on the timer, it's about 85 minutes into the race, and this is the battle for the lead. So there's 3 GT3 drivers all battling it out for the lead. We've got Evil in first place, Sherritt in second place, and AG 25-2014 in third place. And this is AG's first race and first and only race in the championship. He's reserving for Happy Gster in the Bahama Mamas team for this round, and this is where it all sort of kicks off and where the race is decided. But throughout the course of the entire race, it was really good. The pit stops were having an effect, people taking different pit stops at different times. The lead was changing all the time. Sometimes AG would be in the lead, sometimes Sherritt would be in the lead. Now, as we can see, Evo is in the lead, and Sherritt gets a sort of nice run going over the bump here, but just sort of catches the edge, the back end of Evo's car, and that allows AG to take the lead, basically go right through the middle of them as they get involved in that crash, and ultimately goes on to win the race. So good race in GT3. But now let's move on to my race. Now, I got a good start, as you saw from the other perspective, but my second phase of the start certainly wasn't as good, and I sort of filtered into third place here, which turned into second place as JB Car Freak hits the inside barrier there from the lead and unfortunately crashes out. So at this point I'm in second place. AD, who is reserving in the championship for Dr. Peppers for this round, and I think actually he wasn't just reserving, he took over the position for Dr. Peppers, who dropped out. He is new to the championship for this round, but he's obviously very, very quick. So for a long time, for a lot of laps, we are battling it out, and what we're doing is kind of trading lap times a lot of the time. 20 minutes goes by, another 10 minutes goes by, and as you can see, we're still very, very close. Sometimes I'm quicker, sometimes he's quicker. We caught up to the GT3 cars, and I was kind of doing a little bit better getting through those, but I make that little mistake. It wasn't really anything I could have avoided. I just got caught on a prop there that really shouldn't, I don't know how it caught my car, but it's one of those things when props are stuck together, they can sort of glitch out a little bit and have random hitboxes. So unfortunately in that situation I lost a lot of time, and during leading in the lead up to that crash, I'd actually caught up to AD after he'd sort of pulled away at the start, and like I said, we were trading lap times, we were having a really good race. So AD comes in for his first pit stop, and obviously that promotes me into the lead of the race, but he had a decent gap on me after I made that after I had that crash. So obviously when I come in for my first pit stop, it was only natural that I'd be falling back behind him, and that is exactly what happens. Obviously we like I said, we were so closely matched during this race, and Mike BWFC is just behind us, or was just behind us as well, and when I come out from this first pit stop, I actually fall back behind Mike. As you can see there, he's gone past. So AD is still in first place, Mike is in second, and I'm in third. So we're all three of us are very, very close together, and we were kind of pulling away from the rest of the pack. Now, for me, this was a quite interesting moment, because I hadn't driven all that well since I'd gotten into the lead, and obviously I knew that I was only in the lead for the purposes of the pit stop. But even so, Mike gets caught up with Flaming there, his teammate, just gets involved in a crash as the GT1 teammate, his GT1 teammate Flaming, is trying to overtake him, and I am able to take advantage of a slow moving Mike after that incident and get back up into second place. But then I started to actually put in some really decent lap times. I was actually starting to do really well. AD comes in for his second stop of the race, and obviously you can see that the gap is much bigger. He's quite far ahead at this point. So I was kind of in a comfortable second place, but it wasn't altogether comfortable. We were all very, very closely matched, trading lap times. But what I didn't know during the course of, just a little bit later on than this is what happened to AD, as I'm obviously in the lead. There's a slow moving Murphos, he must have made a mistake or something like that, and he basically just goes into the wall, just miscalculates it. So he's lost a lot of time from that. So the question would be, when I come to make my second pit stop, would I be able to come out ahead of AD after that he's made that mistake? Now, I didn't know he'd made that mistake. I was just going on my own. Obviously, I was in the lead of the race, but again, it was only through virtue of the pit stop. So would I be able to come out ahead of him? And as it turns out, I do. As you can see there, just get out just ahead of him. It wasn't very much, and the battle kind of resumes from that point on, and it was kind of exactly the same as the battle that we had in the first few laps, maybe the first half an hour of the race, where we couldn't really be separated. We were exchanging lap times. One lap I'd be quicker, one lap he'd be quicker, and it was just a case of this time the positions were reversed. I was in the lead, he was in second, so we'd both kind of made, I don't know whether really you could say that they were major mistakes, but we both had incidents, and Mike had obviously had an incident as well, so all three of us had lost time in some way. So it was very, very close. It was very, very tense. Obviously both of us still had one pit stop to make, and I was on a sort of later pit stop strategy than everybody else. Obviously I took my first pit stop after about 45 minutes into the race, and you can't take another pit stop until 20 minutes after your last one. So I was kind of running long, if you like, on the first stint. So my second and third pit stops would be very, very late into the race. So it was just on a knife edge all the time. We were very, very closely matched, trading lap times, and the pit stops were kind of separating us to the point where it was going to be always a case of who would come out where after the pit stops were made. As you can see here, AD is going for his third and final pit stop. He was a good maybe 1 or 2 seconds behind me when he came in to make that stop. Mike had the opposite strategy of me. He'd made all his pit stops a lot earlier, but AD was still able to come out ahead of him. So we've got AD in second place, Mike in third place. They're quite close together as well, but I'm obviously in the lead, and it's just a case now of wondering what will happen when I make my final pit stop. Will I be able to come out ahead of AD and retain the lead that I had? I had a decent gap, but you just never know. Or would I drop down into, say, second place in between AD and Mike? But even so, whatever was going to happen, it was going to be a tense final few laps, because we'd be regardless separated by a very, very small amount of time, and we'd been battling for the first half hour of the race with AD in front, and then the last 20 minutes, say, with me in front, and it was just on a knife edge all the time. So we're coming into the very final moments of the race. Now we're sort of, as you can see on the timer, it's close to 90 minutes into the race, the final few laps. I still had my final pit stop to make, and really this is kind of where I should have done it. The thing that I should have done here is peel to the left and make my final pit stop. If I'd made that decision, things might have been a whole lot different, but because I didn't do that, I ended up going to the inside here on the GT3 driver, accidentally clipping the inside there, knocking him over the wall. He ends up having to respawn, and I have to wait for him, obviously, because I've taken him out. And that was pretty much the end of my race. One tiny mistake like that can ruin the entire race. It was such a shame because, you know, if it had been a slightly different contact, say he'd just, you know, grazed across the wall and not gone over it, I would have maybe lost a second and it still would have been game on. If, you know, neither of us, well, the GT3 driver, it was totally my fault that I made that mistake, but he wasn't in any kind of battles, he didn't lose any places because of that, so it was kind of a silly mistake, and ultimately that is what lost me this race. I knew at this point that the race was lost. It was so close between myself, AD and Mike that I had no chance after losing all that time having to wait for the GT3 driver. There was absolutely zero chance that I was going to be able to make my final pit stop and still be able to retain the lead. And Mike was so close behind AD in third place that I knew that when I made my final pit stop, I would end up in third place. Now what actually happened is that I completely lost focus at that point. I lost the even thought that I had to make a pit stop, and I totally forgot to make my final pit stop. So what happens in MCEC races is that the race is over when the leader in GT1 crosses the line, and then everybody else, that's their final lap. Whatever lap they're on when the leader crosses the line, that is their final lap. So I just basically lost all concentration and all focus after that mistake, and lost track of what laps I would needed to be pitting on, and I forgot to make my final pit stop. I came onto this lap here, turned out halfway through it, as you can see, Murphos has finished in first place overall. That meant that this was my final lap of the race, and I had no chance to make my final pit stop. So that was kind of like a double whammy. In reality, it actually didn't make any difference to my result. Even if I'd made my final pit stop, I would have came out. The time difference was so much that I would have came out in third place anyway, and all three of us were so far ahead of the rest of the pack in GT2 that with the penalty that I got from not making that third pit stop, I still got the result for third place. So it actually not making that final pit stop made no difference to my race. It was the mistake of hitting that GT3 driver, or really hitting the inside barrier and then knocking the GT3 driver flying. That is what lost me this race. And after such a good race, such a, you know, tense race between all of us, really close together, myself and AD, really difficult to separate us. We were really in line for a great final few laps as well, of tense action, you know, who would get the better of each other, who would win it on the road. I end up going and making a mistake like that on the final few laps. Like I said, if I just made my pit stop, I was eligible to make my pit stop on the corner before. I should have done it then, and maybe it would have been a different story. But as it happens, one little mistake like that can completely decide a race. And similar to round 4, these mistakes are what's going to cost you in a championship. You need to be getting the wins when you can get them, or at least, I would have at least finished in second place, say, or at least had a better chance of finishing in second place, and could have even got the win. Same with round 4. It's kind of more a case of points lost from a good performance than the points gained from finishing third. So another disappointing round, similar to round 4, where I was kind of on the pace, I was doing well, we were having a great race, and then one little mistake like that just completely ruins it. And yeah, a little bit disappointing in that respect. So I did finish first on the road, but that was only because I didn't make my final pit stop, and then ultimately I finished in third place after the penalties were applied. So Merfos continues his domination of the GT1 championship, a full 90 points from these rounds. I am actually in the lead of the GT2 championship at this point, but again, like I said, because of the way that it works, insofar as you drop your 2 worst rounds, you need to be getting some wins, and dropping these points that I have in round 4 and round 6 aren't really helping me from a championship perspective. Drum Balls wasn't available for round 6, and he won't be in round 7 either. So, but he's still got a lead on the championship there, since a reserve actually ended up winning the race. And the Ron team, despite my losing the points, are still doing well in the team's championship. Now for the Xbox race, time to move on to the Xbox race. We don't have any footage for the GT1 battle, but we do have the GT2 and GT3 footage. But in GT1, Xbox Pro got his second win of the season and his second win in a row, beating out Blaze, who came in second place. So another good performance from him. And in GT2, we kind of had an interesting first lap. So you're seeing it from 3 different perspectives, and they're 3 very good perspectives as well. Ultimately, Edible Hornet got the win in GT2 for Xbox One, and kind of made himself and RJ Slow came in second place in this race. This race kind of put those 2 into the championship hunt alongside Trumpet Master, who didn't have one of his better races here, to be honest. Equation gets a great start. Equation is currently leading. And then Major Copyright and Trumpet Master kind of have a coming together. But ultimately it is RJ Slow and Edible Hornet who finish in second and first places respectively to get some good results. And then in GT3, Matty H just totally dominates the race, despite missing a checkpoint. But it was very good sportsmanship from the GT3 drivers. Matty H basically missed a checkpoint by about a fraction of an inch. Which was kind of more on the design of the track than him. He didn't notice, but he still drove on, having missed that checkpoint, and would have won the race by miles if he'd been, a few centimeters to the right. So the GT3 drivers who were in that battle decided to, award him the win anyway, which was very, very good sportsmanship on the part of the GT3 drivers on Xbox One. So a good win from Matty H, dominant in this race. In terms of the Xbox One Championship, Xbox Pro did bring himself back in to the championship at this point a little bit, but then he decided to drop out after this round, so that kind of sort of handed the championship really to Blaze at that point. And yeah, quite a close battle for the top positions in the GT2 and GT3 championships on Xbox One as well. So now we're going to move on to the PC version of this race. Now, this is probably one of the most amazing ends to a race that I've ever seen. I couldn't believe it when it was happening, because obviously throughout the course of this championship I was racing on the PS4 race, and that was held on a Sunday, but the PC and Xbox One championships, those races were held on Saturdays. And what I would do is live stream me in those races spectating. So I would be spectating from the sidelines, following the race as it went on. If we had anybody live streaming the races, I would have those perspectives on. So we were getting a sort of a live coverage of the races as well for the Xbox One and PC sides. And the end of this race you're going to see from that perspective, because I've saved the live stream footage for the end of the GT1 race. ultimately it turned out to be between Zemvo and Smithy. Smithy had quite a few bad rounds and sort of made a decent return in this race, and Zemvo was having some good races as well. Both of those were battling for the lead for the entirety of the race. They were putting in some incredible lap times, and basically the final lap was just insane. Now, for GT2, it was Mountain Jed who got a win here, with Gooey Goose in second place and Cloud in third place. We don't have any GT2 perspectives for this one, but Cloud's third place there, really just piling on the points for him, and he's putting in a good championship. Mountain Jed's win with that one, which is his second win of the season, also is giving him a good championship position there, as we'll see from the championship tables at the end. And then in GT3, Ezkuz got his second win in a row, 2 wins out of 2 essentially, for the GT3 class, with Benimi in second place. So basically the same results as what we saw for round 5. And yeah, those two are kind of, it felt like those two were a step above, a class ahead of the rest of the GT3 field, for the PC side at least. So it wasn't quite as close for GT3 as it is, say, on Xbox. But yeah, what I'm going to do now is just basically leave you with the stream footage for the end of the GT1 race between Smithy and Zemvo. You'll be able to see it as it happened live, and it's one of the most incredible things I've ever seen. Oh my god, they're so close coming onto the last lap. Half a second between them for the lead, for the win, for the overall win of the race, going on to the last lap. I wonder if I can try and follow them. I don't think so. It's too much. Oh, we can look up there. Hey, nearly done.
Things are hotting up.
Things are hotting up. Where are they going? We got a GT3. Is it going to get out of the way? It's out of the way nicely, but this is the last lap. These are the last few corners of the race.
This is intense.
This is
like
intense.
The fire at the circus.
Another GT3. Zemvo gets past it cleanly. Might be a bit more difficult place. Oh, he's managed to get out of the way nicely. Don't think. Oh, they're so close. They're so close. They're so close. What is this? Oh my god! What a finish to that race! What a finish to that race! Do I need to say anything more? What a finish. What an incredible finish. After an hour and a half of racing, it ends like this. Side by side in the final fast chicane of the track. It's just incredible, and I think this has to be the closest finish in MCEC history, at least for the overall win, if not for any class, for the lead of, at least for the win of any class ever. Just absolutely amazing. Just good job to those guys, and good job to Zemvo for ultimately getting the win for the PC GT1 class. So that's pretty much it for this video. Let me know your thoughts down below. Unlike the actual championship, there won't be a big 5-week break before round 7. That will be next week, or every single Sunday we're going to have a new one of these MCC videos as we catch up until we're going to be all done and dusted. So thank you guys for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I'll see you next time.